Hi there, this is Dirk, and I'm a computer hobbyist. And what that means is that I'm not an expert. And precisely because I'm not an expert in computing, I've run into a problem that I would estimate about 100 other people on the internet have run into. I have jumped into using Apache NetBeans, hoping perhaps to relive a day that most people that could be watching this never even witnessed, which was a day when we were using JBuilder to build Java projects that used rational application design. So I was hoping to recreate those old days, except when I was using JBuilder, they were using Java version 2. And right now I'm using Java version 11. So I had a lot to teach myself. And basically what happens with rational application design is that you get to control the layout of your graphical user interface graphically, and changes that you make get synchronized with your source code. All fine and good. I even wrote a nice little try-catch block that would try to set the look and feel of the application that I created. And basically the look and feel of the application that I created was a very complicated look and feel that would have been difficult to implement simply using a few jar files as imports. So if I run this application, you might notice up here where the cursor is that button 1 is not only being highlit, but it is blinking as it is being highlit. So what I decided these buttons should do is they should simply change the text of the label. So if I click on button 1, the text of the label changes to button 2, to button 1 and button 2. And then what I decided was that button 3 would just change the text of the label back to label 1. And there's a cute little picture that once won a prize for being the best photo as the icon. So the question that I'm not posing in this video is how rational application development works, but rather what we're supposed to do about these dependencies, jar files that my project depends on, that have been compiled, but that I want to include as resources into a jar file which I will export. So because what I've done is I've created a Maven project. So within NetBeans, the type of project that I created happened to be Maven. And because of that, dependencies is a virtual folder. And when I right click on it, assuming that I've got my repositories up to date, it takes about an hour to synchronize the repository for the first time. I can put a query here for looks. So I can put a query here for looks, and what will happen is that the Maven repositories will be searched for various repositories that provide look and feel. Now this is extremely versatile. It's actually telling me that there could be 2,600 potential results, and it's merely showing me 428. I'm so disappointed. That's because I'm using an internet repository of jar files. And that's what the selling point of Maven is. So I actually created the look and feel by using the tentacle swing looks, and the thing is that I get to choose a version. I already chose it. The jar files are there. But here's the problem that I ran into. Let's suppose I followed instructions that I found on the internet and I said clean and build. Within a few seconds on an up-to-date computer, it has cleaned and built. So now I go into my project folder and there are many people who've had this problem. It's in NetBeans projects. I left it at a default. And so for the swing test 4, as this project is called, I do not have a dist folder. The first thing I noticed is that there should be a dist folder, but there is none. And I go into libs, and this is where I would have put jar files that my Linux distribution offers me from the package manager, which are presently being ignored. But then I have a target folder, and within this target folder I have a jar file. And what some people have done, like me, is they have attempted to run this jar file. So I can do this right now, Java. I guarantee you this jar file will not run. First of all, let's do a copy and paste for speed. Java-jar, and I copy and paste the name of the jar file. Control-C, Control-V, Shift-Control that is. And it tells me no main manifest attribute in the jar file. So there is no, the manifest in the jar file doesn't tell the Java interpreter which class has a main method that the interpreter should call in order to get the application running. So I noticed that my best photo has appeared in the jar file because I basically put it in the include path, but I don't have any of the other jar files that my project depends on for my project to display the look and feel. And in fact, if I extract this manifest, it will not mention what the class is that I defined within my source code main window that has to be run to run the project. So the thing is, the question is, what could I be doing wrong? Do I assume that Eclipse, I'm sorry, I'm not using Eclipse, do I assume that NetBeans is defective from the core and that it's doing something very, very wrong? No. What's happening is that because I'm not an expert, I'm doing something very, very wrong. What I have to do, if I want to be able to export a jar file with that ease and straightforward nature, for another sign that it tells me I've done something wrong is I go into the project properties, and where I'm supposed to have a tab for libraries, there's no libraries tab. I have a general tab, I have a sources tab, I have a build and a compile tab, right? Well, I do not have a libraries tab. So again, this is a telltale sign that I'm making a very specific mistake. And I'm going to explain what that mistake is right now. First of all, I'm going to close the project because this project was not started correctly. Close project swing test 4, and we create a new project. And right here is the thing that I overlooked right at the beginning as I got started. Java with Maven is the default, and the default type of project is a Java application. It all sounds very, very logical. But I didn't even know at the time what the features of Maven are that I would be calling into effect. The trick to do is to create the project as Java with Ant. So under Java with Ant, Maven, and Gradle are 3 types of build systems specifically designed for Java. If I design my project to use Ant instead of Maven, as before, I can choose a Java application, and I will call this project Swing Test 6. I have another one that's actually called Swing Test 5, so I won't use it. I'm just going to jump right ahead to Swing Test 6, and I will click Finish to create the project. And what I will discover is that my virtual directories look a little bit different. Not only that, but when I go into my files for my project, I will want to recreate the glory of having, I'm going to be within my source packages here. I'm going to add a new, but instead of adding a simple thing, I'm going to add other. And under other, I'm going to look at swing GUI forms. And the swing GUI form is an application sample form. So this is just to recreate what I had in the other window. The class name will be main window. Source packages. Project is swing test 6. Location in source packages. Which package? Swing test 6. I'm going to put my name in front of it to prevent any naming conflicts. Dirk dot swing test 6 and finish. And because it has created a rational application development source file that has a design pane and a source pane, I no longer need the other one. I can simply delete swingtest6.java, delete. It will ask me whether I want to delete it safely in case I have dependencies on it. And when I click on refactor, this will be gone. And in fact, I can delete this as well. I don't need the virtual folder. But because I have just created a new Java file with a new class implementing the correct package, I have to change some of the project properties. So now within the project properties, lo and behold, I have a libraries tab like I was supposed to. And I have a run tab so that when it runs, instead of running as its main class, what's written here, it's going to run dirk dot swingtest6 dot main window. This is what it has to run. I don't think I need to specify much else. And I click on OK. I click on build. Let's see if I get any error messages. No, build successful. And in fact, it took less than a fraction of a second to build. And when I run the project, let's cross our fingers, there it is, an empty window that displays just like the other one did, and which I could now populate using rational application design to duplicate what I had before. But what I most want to duplicate is to put my own specific jar files there, which can be of arbitrary origin. And this is how you do it. So within the project, where you have your source folder, the source folder, what I basically do is I add a resources folder, new folder. No, I'm going to add a libraries folder, lib. It's not a resources folder, it's a library folder that's going to go right next to my sources folder. It will initially contain nothing. I mean, it has a little that just disappears. But now I'm going to copy over my, for my other project, I'm going to copy over what I had in my libraries folder, these two jar files. I put them there uselessly, or with futility. Resistance is futile, as the Borg say. I dump them in my libraries folder. And so now I've done that. And then within my Apache NetBeans project, they have appeared, the two jar files. So what I will do next is within my project I will go to properties, and because I have a libraries tab, I can now click on class path. I am not advanced enough to use modules these days, but I will soon learn. So once I click class path, I will click jar folder. I can choose any folder on my entire computer. So under NetBeans projects, I have swing test 6, the newly created one, lib. And not only that, but I can actually choose 2 of them. I open, and the 2 jar files are in my class path. And now I'm going to skip a few steps here. I could copy and paste what I had before. Oh, why not? I'll copy and paste what I had before. I'll open another project from the recent projects. I will open swing test 4. And swing test 4 will be a project that had that piece of code with which I changed the look and feel under project files. No, it's under source packages. Swing test 4 main window Java. Now I have to be careful that I don't confuse my 2 main window Java instances. I have main window Java swing test 4, yes. And here in the main window function, because this editor has code folding, it has conveniently, no, it has not used conveniently, within the main function I can now copy, I can copy this piece of code. I can copy it, and within swing test 6 I will find the main function, and here there is some folded code. So what I will do is I will put my code in front of the folded code. It's asking me whether it should include them, and yes, it should include what I declared, what I wasn't. So I put this code in front of my in front of the code that was hidden there before, and I delete the code that wasn't hidden there before. The code that was hidden there before simply had as purpose to load the Nimbus look and feel. So because that's what it did, there's also this comment that I don't need. Instead of saying set the Nimbus look and feel, I'm simply going to say set the look and feel. And I'm going to comment out the more complicated look and feel, and I will comment in, I will uncomment the plastic look and feel in the swing test 6 project. So now I don't need the swing test 4 project anymore, since I was only copying and pasting from it. I close swing test 4 and I'm back in swing test 6. And now I've added this to the main function that it's going to add the look and feel, plastic look and feel. And I'm going to see whether I get any error codes. So under libraries I now have the two files that I had before. I build. Okay, it's telling me that it automatically builds them. I'm going to clean and build anyway just to get any messages. That's why the builds were so fast. And now I try to run. Do I get error messages? No. So even though I have code here which will try to load, even though I have code that will attempt to load one specific look and feel, plastic, if it fails for any reason, it prints out what the available look and feels are, what the available styles are, but nothing gets printed out. So it has successfully loaded the plastic look and feel. Now that's difficult for me to prove as long as my project consists of a blank window. But just to show that this code is actually doing something, I'm going to uncomment motif. I'm going to uncomment motif. And when I've uncommented motif, you're going to notice that this window looks a little bit different. It has the background color that motif would have, thereby proving that there was no error. Okay, so basically what that means is that I've done what I've set out to do. The plastic look and feel would not normally be included with the plastic look and feel would not normally be included. So I'm going to put a look and feel that I know I haven't implemented. I know this isn't implemented. I clean and build. I run. I get output. Where my mouse is now waving around on the screen, it's listing me it's telling me what the list of installed look and feels are, including Nimbus, including Metal, and including look and Motive and GTK. So I'm going to reverse that again just to prove that the program is doing what it's supposed to do. You will notice that plastic isn't listed here. I have Metal look and feel, I have Nimbus look and feel, I have Motive, and I have GTK, but plastic is not listed here, right? So now I've changed the source code back to plastic look and feel. I clean and build. I run it. It's got the other. It's got that other background color. Okay, so now I'm going to examine what I actually did. I created a project using Ant instead of Maven. A very important first step. If this is not done correctly, the entire project will not be configured correctly. So swingtest4 was created using Maven. It has a pom.xml file. Swingtest4 was created for use with Ant. It has a build.xml file, and within it I have a dist folder with a jar file named swingtest6, and I'm going to try to run it just to see if it runs. java-jar swingtest6.jar. No error messages, no messages of any kind. But here it just crashed when I tried to. Okay, fine. So apparently there are still some events that are not as they should be. I was not expecting that outcome. So I still have some work to do to determine why this thing finally crashed. Exception in initializer error. It's in jgoodies. Sure enough, within my jgoodies jar file, something doesn't like the fact that I just closed the application. At com.jgoodies.looks.shadowpop, it didn't like the fact that I closed the application. I'm going to have to research that. But in any case, it's a runnable jar file. I did not explain in this video where I obtained the jar files that I embedded. Yeah, they're not included. So let's try this again, Apache NetBeans. So anyway, I think that even though I made a mistake somewhere, I think that my viewers get the general idea. This was the most important thing, to create an Ant project under build, packaging, what does it say? Build jar after compiling, copy dependent libraries. Well, it should in fact have succeeded. Build a jar after compiling. It did in fact create sources. So if I include in my sources the lib folder, move it down so that it's not the first in the list, I click OK. I click clean and build again. It says successful. Testing it within the framework of the IDE, even that causes a failure. Okay, so I know what's basically wrong. It's the fact that the jar files that I supplied, they don't have enough code to deal with the possibility that I could close the application. They don't know what to do when the application has quit. I guess that's a risk when you supply your own jar files. I just want to make sure that my NetBeans project swing text 6 in the dist folder. I want to make sure. This is what I was not prepared for. Swing test.6 does not. Oh yes, there they are. JGoodies common jar. So now the jar files are included because I included them in the build path. They are now included in the jar file, in the exported jar file. That was my main purpose. So I can do this test again just to see if it runs. But because my jar files haven't been connected adequately to deal with the possibility that the application might get closed, believe it or not, the window displays properly. And then as soon as I close my window, I get an error. I get a series of I get no crashes at all. There you go. So the problem is completely solved, I think, unless I try the file menu again. Yeah, the file menu doesn't do what it's supposed to do. I basically did not connect the file menu in such a way that my jar files know what to do about a closing window. If I exit by way of the file menu, I get an error message, but if I close the window, I don't. That's to be expected if you're just grabbing jar files out of nowhere, and if you didn't check the code carefully enough. Anyway, I think I've actually done enough of an exercise here. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.